Hello everyone, and thank you for taking the time to watch this video. The purpose of this video is to explain what this activity called rope access is all about. A specialized activity that, over the years, has been gaining more and more strength in modern industry, becoming one of the most efficient, versatile, and competitive solutions for working at height. But the question is, what exactly is rope access? Why are more and more companies, industries, and professionals using it as an alternative to conventional access methods? What makes it so efficient? What makes it so useful? And why is it now considered one of the best solutions for working at height? To answer these questions, we are going to use our website as support, www.bisonupinc.com. Once inside the website, we go to the Services section and click on the tab that says Rope Access and Work at Height. Now click on what is rope access. Rope access is a specialized industrial method of working at height that uses advanced climbing, positioning, and progression techniques to reach difficult or restricted areas without relying on bulky structures such as scaffolding, suspended platforms, or powered access equipment such as scissor lifts, boom lifts, vertical mast lifts, and so on. Originally derived from mountaineering and caving, this system was not simply transferred into the industrial sector as it originally existed. Because in industry, no work can be performed without first minimizing risks as much as possible. For that reason, these original techniques were analyzed, modified, and adapted to answer one fundamental question. What happens if something fails? What happens if the main system fails? What happens if a piece of equipment fails? What happens if an emergency occurs while the technician is suspended? And it is precisely from these questions that rope access evolved. It was refined by incorporating backup systems, redundancy, and emergency procedures until it met the high safety standards required by modern industry. And later on, we're going to see exactly what we mean by that. Now, one of the main advantages of rope access is speed of deployment. While assembling scaffolding or installing a suspended platform can take hours or even days, a rope system can be installed and operational within minutes. And that represents a huge operational advantage. Because while conventional systems require assembly, disassembly, transportation, counterweights, leveling, and waiting times, rope access simplifies that entire process. And when it's time to move to the next work area, the difference becomes even more obvious. With a suspended platform, for example, the entire structure has to be moved, counterweights reorganized, and the whole system reinstalled. With scaffolding, in many cases, it has to be dismantled and rebuilt. With powered access equipment, the entire machine often has to be repositioned. With rope access, on the other hand, you simply reposition your ropes, adjust your system, and continue working. Just like that. That is why, depending on the structure and the scope of the project, rope access can reduce overall execution times by between 60% and 85%. That means less intervention time, fewer interruptions, and greater operational efficiency. Another major advantage is that it is minimally invasive. Unlike many conventional systems, in most cases there is no need to close streets, block lanes, interrupt access points, or redirect pedestrian traffic. And that is especially important in corporate buildings, hospitals, hotels, shopping centers, or industrial facilities that need to continue operating normally. Another major advantage is that it produces virtually no noise. It does not rely on engines, does not consume fuel, and does not require heavy machinery to operate. This significantly reduces environmental impact and noise pollution, keeping the work area cleaner, more organized, and much quieter. Another huge advantage is operational independence. When working with conventional equipment, a mechanical failure can completely stop the operation. And when that happens, not only does the work come to a halt while maintenance or technical support arrives, in many cases, the operator may also be left stranded or stuck at height, unable to continue or descend on their own, completely depending on the equipment being repaired or assistance arriving. With rope access, it is different. The technician maintains full control over their ascent, descent, and positioning at all times. This means that even in an emergency, a secondary equipment issue, or any unexpected situation, the technician still maintains control over the system and their descent. They do not depend on engines, hydraulic systems, or electrical components to descend safely. All control remains in their hands and in their mechanical devices, and that reduces downtime, increases operational continuity, and provides an immediate response capability in the face of any unexpected event. In addition, rope access removes many of the access limitations that conventional equipment has, allowing technicians to reach areas where machines simply cannot, such as complex structures, irregular facades, bridges, chimneys, silos, towers, confined spaces, or offshore structures. Places where versatility makes all the difference. And it is precisely that portability, speed, adaptability, and high technical level that has made rope access one of the most effective, safe, and competitive solutions for inspections, maintenance, cleaning, installations, painting, and industrial rescue. And that is why, throughout the industry, many professionals confidently say, rope access is the answer. Now let's explain why rope access is safe. For that, we're going to click on the tab that says, Why and how is rope access safe? Why and how is rope access so safe? Beyond all the advantages mentioned earlier, it is important to understand that safety in rope access depends directly on proper training. When a technician is certified under the official standards that govern this industry, the system becomes a virtually fail-proof method. Now, let's briefly and clearly explain why these techniques are so safe. In rope access, safety is based on two fundamental pillars: equipment strength and system redundancy. Every component used is specifically designed and manufactured for industrial rope access, complying with strict standards. As we have mentioned before, just as all techniques that originally came from the sports and recreational world were analyzed, modified, and adapted to meet industrial safety standards, the exact same thing happened with the equipment. For that reason, the use of improvised or recreational equipment in industrial rope access is strictly prohibited. All equipment used is industrial grade, certified, and specifically designed to withstand the loads, demands, and working conditions of rope access and work at height. And safety is not only in the equipment. It is also in the way the entire system is configured to make this activity a nearly 100% safe method. Because it is not only about having certified equipment. It is about how the entire system is built, connected, and backed up to reduce risks to the maximum possible level. For example, a rope access technician always works on two completely independent ropes, each with the minimum strength required for the activity. For example, certified static ropes rated above 22 kilonewtons. These ropes are the working line and the safety line or backup line. Each rope is installed on two independent anchor points, each with a minimum strength of 5,000 pounds, which is the minimum required by work at height regulations. In the unlikely event that one of those anchor points fails, the rope remains anchored to the second anchor point, which still meets the minimum required strength. Because although one single anchor point is enough, according to regulations, to be used as an anchor point for work at height, the technician uses two anchor points on each rope. That means each rope is anchored to 10,000 pounds, exceeding by double the minimum strength required by regulations. A rope access technician is trained to identify suitable anchor points for rope access. And that gives us a major advantage because the technician can improvise structures as anchor points as long as they meet the required 5,000 pounds. But before explaining this in greater detail, let's go to the section of this same website called Technical Articles and open the article called Anchorage Points, Selection, Installation, and Use Criteria. In this section, they briefly explain what an anchor point is. As we have mentioned, an anchor point is absolutely any element that I can connect to as long as it supports 5,000 pounds, or in other words, 2,268 kilograms. Under that principle, we can divide anchor points into different categories. To begin with, we have improvised anchor points. These are basically any element I can connect to as long as it has that required strength. For example, 2.5-inch by 2.5-inch steel angles. The structures that support air conditioning units, which are very common on industrial rooftops and buildings. Metal stairs, concrete columns, among many other options. Now the question is, how do I know that the structure I am going to use as an anchor point can support the required strength? To understand this, we need to keep something important in mind. 5,000 pounds, in terms of material strength, is actually a relatively low resistance requirement in construction and industry in general, considering that ordinary steel has an approximate resistance of 70,000 pounds per square inch, and we are only being required to meet 5,000. So in practical terms, we have an almost unlimited number of anchor point options that can be used for this activity. If we keep scrolling down in this article, we can also find manufactured permanent anchor points. It is important to mention that these can only be installed by qualified and certified personnel. These anchor points are mainly used in concrete, although they can sometimes also be used in perforated metal plates. Their function is to create an anchor point when we cannot find an existing structure to connect to. Because drilling into a structural steel member would be considered weakening the structure, they are normally not used on structures whose shape itself provides a large percentage of their strength. For example, 2.5-inch by 2.5-inch steel angles, where making a minimum 5/16-inch hole could weaken the structure. If we continue scrolling down, we can also find temporary anchors specifically manufactured for work at height, which meet this strength requirement. These anchors are used when we want to use a structure as an anchor point, but that structure is too large for our hook to fit around and connect to. As we can see here, for example, this anchor for I-beams, and this choking sling, which allows us to wrap around any structure that has the required strength, as shown in the image. This sling is very useful because it comes in different lengths, allowing us to wrap around even 3-foot by 3-foot columns, turning them into our anchor points. I invite you to read this article, since it also explains anchor systems. Now that we have explained this, let's go back to the section on why rope access is safe. Safety does not only depend on anchor points or how strong the anchor points we're going to use are. It does not depend only on the strength and safety of those anchor points. It also depends on how the technician installs the ropes and how they position themselves on those ropes. For this explanation, let's now move into our simulation software. Here we are in our simulation software to explain how a rope access technician configures their suspension system for rope access. Here, we are placing a pair of anchor points. Remember that the only requirement for an anchor point is that it must support 5,000 pounds and that we must be able to connect to it. This anchor point can be an existing structure that we can connect to, or it can also be a structure that we have wrapped with our choking sling. The technician connects a carabiner to each anchor point, and these carabiners also meet the same minimum required strength. It is important to mention that, just as the anchor point must support a minimum of 5,000 pounds, any element of the personal fall protection system must also support that same minimum of 5,000 pounds, whether it is the harness, the connectors, or the anchor points. Once the carabiners are connected, the technician proceeds to connect the rope to these carabiners by using specialized knots designed for this activity. These knots are adjustable in order to always maintain the same tension on both ends of the V formed by the rope angles, so that the technician is supported by both anchor points at the same time. This first rope that we are installing is the backup or safety line. Once the safety line has been installed, we proceed to install the working line, which has exactly the same configuration. We're going to change its color so we can easily tell them apart. Once the ropes have been connected to the anchor points, the technician proceeds to connect to both ropes. It is important to mention that a rope access technician does not use just any harness at random. A rope access technician must use a 5-point harness, which is specifically manufactured and configured for rope access and rescue. Because it is important to understand that not all harnesses are designed for all types of work. If we go back once again to the technical articles section of our website, we will find an article that explains how to choose the correct harness for work at height, depending on the type of work to be performed. Here we will find that there are 1-point harnesses, 3-point harnesses, 4-point harnesses, 5-point harnesses, and even 7-point harnesses. But the one used for rope access and rescue is this one here, the 5-point harness. Because this harness includes the ventral attachment point, which is the designated and assigned attachment point for connecting our auto-locking descender. To explain this, let's go back to our simulation software. But before that, I invite you to review this article, where you'll be able to learn in greater detail what function each one of the harnesses we have mentioned in this presentation serves. As we have mentioned, the technician connects to both ropes simultaneously. And to make this connection, the technician uses two devices. The first device that must be connected is the one that goes on the emergency or backup line. This device is a rope grab specifically designed for rope access. This is the first device to be installed and the last one to be removed, since it is part of the emergency system. Once the emergency or backup system is connected, the technician proceeds to connect the descender device to the working line. According to rope access standards and regulations, this device must be auto-locking and hands-free. And what does that mean? It means that the device always remains locked, preventing the technician from descending on a rope unless they intentionally activate the descent handle. This device is mandatory because in the event that the technician accidentally lets go of the rope, whether due to carelessness, human error, or something as simple as fainting caused by heat exhaustion, an impact against a structure, or any other unexpected situation, this device prevents the technician from falling in an uncontrolled descent to the ground. Now, let's watch a video where its operation is demonstrated. As we can see, this device only allows descent when the descent handle is activated. As we have seen, the equipment, the techniques, and the system configurations are designed to make this activity a nearly 100% safe method. Because the technician is not only complying with work at height and high-risk safety regulations, but actually exceeding them. As we can see, the technician works on two ropes, so if one fails, the technician still has the other rope. And at the same time, each rope is connected to two anchor points. That means that if one of those anchor points fails, the rope still remains attached to the second anchor point, which still meets the minimum requirements established by standards and regulations. 5,000 pounds of strength. Redundancy, as we explained earlier, is what keeps this activity nearly 100% safe. It is important to mention that we do not call it 100% safe, because no activity in the world is. Even driving a car is not a 100% safe activity. Now, let's go back to our website, where we're going to explain what would happen in the event of an emergency. Now we go further down on our website and click on the tab that says, "What happens in an emergency?" One of the great advantages of rope access is the high level of rescue training that every rope access technician receives. With complete and proper training, every certified rope access technician masters more than 20 mandatory rescue techniques, allowing them to resolve any issue that may affect their own system, as well as safely assist or evacuate a coworker who may need help at height. This level of preparation ensures that emergency response is immediate, efficient, and completely independent from external machinery or equipment operators. In addition to emergency techniques, a rope access technician is not only trained to prevent accidents. They are also trained to resolve any emergency that may arise within their own rope system. And not only that, they're also trained to assist a coworker who may be facing an emergency. Practically speaking, a rope access technician is a rope rescue specialist. And for this, the technician not only has the equipment needed to descend safely, as we have shown before. Additionally, they must carry essential rescue equipment attached to their harness at all times while suspended or performing rope access techniques. This allows them to respond immediately to any unexpected situation they may encounter while moving along the rope. We must understand that rescuing another person is not the only emergency that can happen. Something as simple as finding a knot in the rope while descending is already considered an emergency. And the technician must have both the equipment and the knowledge required to safely pass that knot while always maintaining rope access safety rules. And that can only be achieved through proper training and the right equipment. In addition to this, the rope access technician always keeps all tools connected during the job by using lanyards designed to support the weight of each tool. For example, a drill, a chainsaw, or something as light as a mop and a squeegee in the case of window cleaning. As we can see, rope access is a virtually safe activity as long as certified and regulated rope access equipment is being used. And as long as that equipment is being used by a properly trained and certified rope access technician. A technician who is not only trained to make the configuration of their descent system nearly 100% safe, but is also trained to respond correctly to any emergency. And keeping in mind something very important. In rope access, the rescue plan is not an external protocol. The equipment itself is the rescue plan. As you have seen, rope access is an activity that allows us to solve many difficult access challenges when carrying out work at height. Its wide range of possibilities includes, for example, advanced window cleaning service. Very useful for buildings, homes, and hotels. Where the client wants the worker outside the window, whether in hotel rooms or apartments, to spend the least amount of time possible there. We also have installations at height. Installation of panels, accessories, signage, and exterior elements on elevated structures. Caulking and sealant application. Professional silicone application on windows and joints to correct leaks and prevent water infiltration. High-pressure water testing. Leak detection and waterproofing verification through controlled high-pressure water testing. Painting and protective coatings. Application of paint and protective coatings on facades, structures, and hard-to-reach areas. Tree trimming at height. Technical pruning, hazardous branch removal, and vegetation management using rope access. And also difficult access operations. Execution of tasks in areas where conventional machinery simply cannot reach, using certified rope access systems. Not only can the common jobs that I just gave as examples be performed. As we saw at the beginning of this video, there is a wide range of jobs where rope access can be applied. And with this, we have reached the end of this video. Hoping it has been useful to you. Before saying goodbye, I would like to invite you to visit our technical articles section, where you will find not only the information we covered today, but also very useful safety information, not only for work at height, but for high-risk work in general. Here you will find very good advice about hot work, electrical hazards, confined spaces, regulations, and many other topics related to industrial safety. I would also like to mention that if you would like to learn more about rope access and better understand many of the techniques used in this activity, you can get a copy of our rope access book. You can find it by clicking this red button, or by choosing any of the links you see in this section. The book is available in 5 languages, so you can get it in the language of your preference and learn more about this specialized industry. And now this is where we say goodbye. Hoping this video has been completely useful to you, and stay safe.